So the first component of the system is what I call the end game. And the end game is essentially just, what are you trying to achieve? Where are you trying to go? What is your ultimate goal? Think about 5, 10, 20 years from now. What do you want to have accomplished? And your end game can be absolutely anything that you want it to be. It can be based around money or numbers, sales, that kind of thing. It can be based around passion or art or literature. It can be based around your future and where you want to be, or your past and what you're moving away from. You can also have multiple end games if that's helpful to you. Your end games can be different than other people's end games or exactly the same as somebody else's. You can change your mind halfway through. Maybe you say you have one end game and you get partway there and you change your mind and you want it to be something else. There are no rules. You can also set SMART goals if you're familiar with those. A SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and timely, or something like that. But you don't have to. Your end game can be incredibly specific or it can be incredibly vague. The whole point of the end game is that it provides context for the rest of your plan. And what kind of context you need is very specific to you and your situation and your books, right? So a couple things to think about as you're thinking about what your end game is going to look like. Or here's a couple questions you can ask yourself. The first is, what impact do I want to make in the world? And the answer to that question could be your end game. Another question could be, where do I want to be as a writer in 5 years, or 10 years, or 20 years? And then the third question, why did I start writing in the first place? What do I love about it? So here are 3 questions that you can kind of think about as you're developing and drafting your end game. The first is, what impact do I want to make in the world? The second question is, where do I want to be as a writer in 5 years, or 10, or 20, or at the end of my life? And the third question, why did I start writing in the first place? What do I love about writing? Why am I pursuing this as a career path? I want to give you a few examples of end games that I have encountered, as well as my own current end games. I will say my end games have changed dramatically over the last few years, but mostly just to become more specific and more relevant to me and where I want to go based on my life situation and how things have changed. So I basically have 3 end games. I'm a multiple end games kind of person. I have a numerical end game, an ideological end game, as well as a sort of that would be a cool thing to happen end game. So my numerical one is based off of money. I would like to profit a reasonable salary from my books, specifically royalty income. So I'm not talking about making money off of doing workshops. I'm not talking about making money off of products. I'm not talking about making money off of anything else, specifically book royalty income. I would like to make an average salary between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. And I want that to be profit. So after all of my expenses for marketing and publishing and editing and all of that stuff, I want that to be what I bring home. I want to pay myself $50,000 to $100,000 a year. That's my numerical end game. My ideological end game is I want to be a part of the movement to change the face of literature to become more diverse, equitable, and representative of the wide variety of people that exist in the world. That's my ideological end game. And then my third end game is that I would like to have enough interest that I am offered the opportunity to make a TV show. That's a sort of nice to have in the long run. not the end of the world if I don't get there, but I definitely have it in the back of my head. And it does have some minor implications for how I present myself and the types of things that I focus on and I'm trying to get good at and that kind of stuff. So those are my 3 end games. So I thought I would also share a few end games of other authors that I've encountered, and some of my clients, people who have hired me to help them with their business. So one of my favorite clients was a scientist, and he went to Antarctica in the 1960s scuba diving to collect algae from the bottom of the ocean, which is such a cool story. He wrote a memoir about it. And his end game, he had 2. One was to inspire teenagers to pursue the sciences, and the second end game was to just leave his story behind for his family and his grandkids and posterity. I had one client whose entire end game was, I want to publish a book. It was on her bucket list. It had been on her bucket list for many years. She had a book written and ready to go. She just needed to figure out how to do it. She didn't want to build a career. She didn't want to do marketing. She didn't want to do all of this other stuff. Her end game was literally to publish a book. And that's it. I've known 2 other authors whose end games actually had nothing to do with the book that they published. One was a personal trainer, and the other one ran a small Google AdWords business. And both of them wanted to run successful businesses. And they wrote a book to support that end game, to help them establish credibility with their clients, as well as to provide a resource for their clients to turn to and maybe make a little bit of extra money on their book, from their book on the side. I knew /know an author who her end game was to get her books in every bookstore in America. And this end game I bring up because she opted to go the traditional route because, she had a lot of reasons for going the traditional route, but this particular end game specifically impacted the entire path that she took to publication and beyond. So she went to get her master's degree, did all of the learning and the networking, then got published by Random House. And if your goal is to get on every bookstore in America, at least right now, the easiest way to do that is to get published by a traditional company. Certainly possible as an indie author, but it is a bit more work, and you're paying for it out of pocket. The other author I wanted to bring up is, and I've actually seen a few different authors who do this, they have a very ideological endgame. So, for example, I know one author who her focus is on creating body positive, sex positive romance. And she wants to spread the message of body positivity, essentially. I've seen authors who follow a certain religion who want to spread the message of their religion as their end game. I knew an author who wrote a book on mindfulness for kids. She has written a couple kids books, and she's also written lesson plans for teachers to teach their kids how to meditate and understand their feelings and emotions, with the end game of giving teachers and kids the resources, giving kids the resources to better manage their emotions, and giving teachers the resources to teach their kids how to better manage their emotions. So there's just a few examples. Your end game can be anything that you want it to be. Anything at all. There are no rules. You can change it if you want to. It can be short, it can be long, it can be specific, it can be vague. If you only want to write books and you are financially secure and you have no interest in making any money and you have no interest in marketing, ever, don't do it. Be free. Don't even watch the rest of this course if you don't want to. Your end game might literally be, all I want is to write books. You can do that without ever spending a second or a dollar on marketing. And you can forget all of this crap and just go write books. There is no rule that if you publish a book, you also have to market it. There is no rule that if you write a book, you have to publish it. Your end game can be anything that you want it to be.